Welcome to Straight Talk. Today our focus is squarely on the Waikato. It's facing plenty of challenges in the run-up to Christmas. Weather watchers tell us there are well-founded fears of another drought, and that's making farmers very nervous. Some have barely recovered from the hammering they endured 2 summers ago. What action can farmers take now? Meat workers face a bleak Christmas after fire destroyed Silver Fern Farm's Te Arawa plant recently. As they ponder their future, what could add to their woes is that dairy farmers may be taking the hard decision to cull more stock earlier than normal. Where will they be killed? What's it all mean for a meat industry that still needs a lot of restructuring? And chefs and consumers are speaking out about Kiwi food. Celebrity chef Peter Gordon is critical of the quality of lamb and the price, while pork eaters will have to fork out more money for their favourite dish, just in time for Christmas. Today I'm joined by National Business Review editor Nevil Gibson and Dr. Allison Oosterman, a former agricultural journalist turned journalism lecturer. Well, Nevil, what does this all mean? There's not very good signs ahead for summer, started very early and looking likely to continue.
Well, it's good for some things and not for others, and I think the economic hit of droughts becoming more common in the North Island, but of course the South Island are going to benefit from warmer weather and better growing conditions. So I think the dairy industry focus will probably move south. I don't know if we're at the stage yet where dairy farmers in Waikato have to look to some other form of occupation, but it could be serious. But there haven't been any strong economic analysis at this stage, so maybe it's early days yet, we could get a wet spell.
Yeah. These warnings were made about, 10, 15, 20 years ago, weren't they? With the idea of gradual climate change and that, some crops might be able to be grown further south, that perhaps there would be a change in farming patterns. Do you think we're really seeing some evidence of that occurring now?
I think you're right there, because Northland should really be the fruit bowl of New Zealand, but of course there isn't for many other reasons. But obviously they could look at growing warmer fruit and getting better land management there. And the Waikato, maybe that'll turn into one of the grain centres of New Zealand if things continue the way they're going.
Who knows? You're a former Waikato girl, aren't you, Allison? This is a big knock for a region that's still suffering from the prolonged effects of drought a couple of seasons back.
Yes, it's what you said about 15 to 20 years ago. I had a farmer friend down at Rerewhakaitu saying exactly that they'd have to change what they were growing or what they were breeding for the area.
Do you think farmers have made some of those changes already? Have they acted proactively in that regard? Have they just thought about it and gone, oh, well, we'll see what next season
Well, there was
brings?
that period, wasn't it, when everybody diversified into different crops and tried different things, but that seems to have died away, rather. One of the things that you were talking about, maybe what they could do, is what about replanting some trees? I've just been travelled down from Christchurch to Timaru. It's just totally denuded, a lot of the, because they have to allow for those big irrigators. And that can't be good for climate.
No.
You need the trees.
Indeed.
In the old days on the farm, you had all your hedgerows and your poplars and whatever, and smaller size paddocks.
Yeah, and that's one of the big criticisms of the dairy industry, isn't it, Nevil, from down in that Canterbury area, that it is becoming a very monocultural level of agriculture, rather as with vineyards in Marlborough.
Yes, well, the reason for the trees, of course, was to provide windbreaks to stop the dry land from blowing around. If you're irrigating it, though, you don't have such a dust problem. So obviously water management's the key thing there, because there is plenty of water. It's a matter of managing it, and obviously they're moving on to that. But I don't see the dairy industry going backward again in Canterbury. It's going to, in fact, Fonterra's just got permission to build yet another plant in the middle in Darfield.
Yes.
So that's obviously they're looking to a huge supply coming on stream.
Right. Now, getting along to the economic impact of the fact that it looks as though we're going to have a dry period, even if it does rain in January, as has been suggested, there's still going to be a hit to returns, particularly from dairying. How serious is that, Nevil?
Well, it was pretty serious a couple of years ago, but the prices are so high that it probably, the latest estimates I've seen is about commodity prices are going to go up nearly 2%, so there's going to be quite a big kick in there for the economy. So we could probably see, even if there is a fall in production, the amount of money involved will be the same, but obviously that's a loss of income any way you look at it.
Right, and is that making economists generally rather nervous about prospects for the economy?
It certainly is, yeah. The economists have got quite bearish over the last couple of months. They see consumers not spending money, and what was going to be quite a big pre-Christmas spend up probably isn't going to happen, and things aren't going to really improve till about March next year. That's the more bearish ones.
Right, and that'll flow through into the rest of the economy, won't it, Allison, in terms of servicing industries in provincial towns? Everyone's going to take a hit.
Well, except the feed companies who have to supply the supplementary feed for the farmers.
And already there's a shortage in some areas and prices that are quite a lot higher than they were even a few weeks or months ago.
Well, farms aren't self-sufficient anymore, are they? And so they're having to buy in stuff. But I see, you know, companies like Mighty River Power are taking a hit, so that must have a flow-on effect for prices.
Well, now moving on to the fire at the Tiaroa plant of Silver Fern Farms. This is pretty large scale for a small town where the plant was such a large employer, Nevil.
You've got to be very careful when a town depends on one industry, and this was a fire caused by carelessness rather than any malicious act. But half the plant is burnt down, the killing part, but the rest of it's standing. It looks like Silver Fern Farms will have to rebuild because it is an important beef plant, and they can't really, they've got to send all their stock to Hawke's Bay and elsewhere, so that'll allow their competitors to build up in Waikato unless they rebuild.
Right. So, Allison, that's something that the area just didn't need at this time. Farmers already thinking about the prospect of drought. A hit like this makes everyone much more nervous about, you know, rural areas, prospects.
Well, it is a very small town. It's only 4,000. It's my birthplace, actually. So
right.
You know, I mean, I was trying to think, what else
it.
have they got there? They've got the racecourse, so there's a bit of an equine industry, but it's mainly dairy farming around there.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it'll be tough for them.
Indeed. But some of the meat workers are talking about relocating perhaps down to Hastings temporarily. The company is suggesting that may be the answer.
Well, I would say that there's probably people in those areas who would like the jobs too. So I don't think it's that easy to say 190 families or whoever are going to be able to shift just like that, just before Christmas.
And mobility seems to have slowed down a bit. New Zealanders used to move around a lot, but you hardly see it now, even in banks and those sort of institutions where the local bank manager moved on all the time. And but there's a big move of labour to Christchurch, of course, with the rebuilding. So rebuilding a plant in Tiaroa is going to be quite hard because of the lack of people to do it.
Yeah. Now, what about the wider picture of meat industry restructuring, Nevil? Silver Fern Farms, they might have wished that perhaps one of their plants affected by this unfortunate event was a lamb-killing plant down south, where they've got excess capacity they need to do something about.
Yes, so certainly the meat companies still taking quite a cautious approach to this. I guess they're hoping that, you know, maybe there'll be a big spike and lamb will come back and, you know, farmers will get the benefit of the high prices, that sort of thing. There's certainly no, you know, when you're looking out 10 years, there's not going to be any food. There's going to be a food shortage all around the world, so anybody who's in the meat business is going to do better, although some reports say that red meat will be less favoured than white meat.
What do you think, Allison? The meat industry's had it pretty tough for quite a number of years, and there's a lot of talk about getting together, cooperation, restructuring, wider industry plans. Just doesn't seem to get the traction it needs.
Well, perhaps they're not listening to the people who are trying to buy their product or not noticing what the trends are. Yes, I can't understand it. It's, in the time that I've been interested in the industry, it's been the same story for years, hasn't it?
Well, we hope we don't keep hearing that in 2011. After the break, when it comes to beef and lamb, where do we stand with quality and with consumer preference? Are these the real issues farmers need to weigh up, or could there be others? And by 2013, sow crates will be banned. Is this a victory for animal rights campaigners or a hit in the pocket for consumers? Stay with us. Welcome back to Straight Talk. Now it's on to You Said It, where we scour the ag media and drill deeper into the hottest topics making the rounds. Well, Allison, celebrity chef Peter Gordon, he won't be the flavour of the month with New Zealand sheep farmers. He's made some comments questioning the quality of the lamb available and also the price. What do you make of this?
Well, I think every customer has a right to expect a quality product, and if they're not receiving it, they have to tell the people who are providing it that. I don't think it was an attack. I think he was genuinely concerned about it and was trying to impart that information back to the people who are providing it.
But he's supposed to be an ambassador for New Zealand beef and lamb. This stepping a little outside the promotion level, isn't it?
It's interesting, isn't it, New Zealanders' attitude to so-called complaints. I mean, how do you get quality unless you demand it? And that's what he demands, and he has a right to demand it. Anybody has a right to demand quality. And it doesn't sound as if beef and lamb are going to take him away from his ambassadorship.
What do you think, Neville? I mean, there's a lot of New Zealand shoppers, they don't even look at lamb in the supermarket at the moment because of its price.
Well, they certainly don't. But lamb seems to be more of a food service product now, going through restaurants. You pay a fancy price. And I think his complaint was really how the industry is dealing with the restaurants. And it could be that if the supplies are running short at some points, that maybe lamb has to be taken off a year-round menu, that they have to focus on certain times of the year. And in England, of course, you've got competition from lamb from other countries as well, so maybe he's got a bigger problem than he's just expressing in regard to New Zealand.
But New Zealanders would expect to be able to eat lamb at any time of the year, wouldn't they? Especially if they're going to a fine dining restaurant and they're being charged $40 or $50 a plate for it.
Well, I don't know about $50.
I hope not.
But you get, well, it's always quite small cuts, isn't it? So you know you're buying a little bit of a good thing. And yeah, I guess we have it at least once a week. And so we don't find it too expensive because it's a health thing as well, because you might be able to eat large quantities of beef, but it's usually not too good.
No.
I think a trend is that the portion sizes are smaller. I know that for myself that I buy and eat smaller portions.
And that's a good way to be supporting the industry as well as a healthy option, as you say, Neville.
Well, we've already mentioned Silver Fern Farms and their packaging of venison and lambs being, I presume, highly successful because it's still available in the supermarkets, and that's a pretty fancy price, but it's really good quality, and we've got some comfort that these are the same products being marketed in France.
Now,